Well, hello. I'm Mary Beth. I go by MB, and I'm a program manager in the Arctic Research Program, which sits in the Global Ocean Monitoring and Observing Program within NOAA. And I am one of the IARPIC STEM co-leads, new, and I'm joined by Michelle as well, who's another STEM co-lead. And I'm also the coordinating editor of the Arctic Report Card. And so couple through lines here. But I will, I think, right away go ahead and turn it over to Heather, who is also a part of the Global Ocean Monitoring and Observing Program, as well as the Ocean Acidification Program here at NOAA, as our Education and Outreach Specialist. And she spent a considerable amount of time making this amazing educational toolkit that we are excited to share with you today. So, Heather.
Thanks, MB. I'm just getting my screen set up so I can see y'all. All right. Well, hi everyone. It's nice to have you all here. And thanks to the IRPIC STEM team for hosting the webinar and sharing it after for anyone who might be watching asynchronously. This webinar today is about the Arctic Report Card Educational Resource Kit. My name is Heather Heenehan, as MB said. I'm the Education and Outreach Specialist for the NOAA Global Ocean Monitoring and Observing Program and the Ocean Acidification Program. And again, today really diving into the Arctic Report Card. So that's in the GOMO ARP part of my job, and this resource kit. And I do also want to note that um, these slides, many of them feature photos from the 2025 Arctic Report Card photo contest. So you'll see the photo credits in the corner, and hopefully more coming soon on future contests. Okay, so this is our plan to do some intros. MB is going to talk a little bit about the Arctic Report Card. Um, and then we'll dive into the educational resource kit, do some background, take a little tour, um, make sure everyone knows about the data dashboard, and then have plenty of time for Q&A. And I think I know sort of the answer to this question from everyone currently on the call. Um, just your name, where you're calling in from, and how, when, and where do you teach about the Arctic? Yes, hi Sarah. Newly teaching about the Arctic. Love that, Gabby. No, and I think I put my message in a reply to Sarah by accident. High school debate. Yes, last year featured an Arctic topic, which MB got to use her expertise.
There's one
Yes.
more tournament this year, and they will be live broadcasting the finals of that tournament. So
Oh, cool. You'll have to share that.
I will. And it's usually slower. So
All right. Well, thank you all. And for those of you that are tuning into this asynchronously, my email will be at the end. So please feel free to email and we can and chat about the resource kit and get your feedback and such. So, MB, why don't you give us a little bit of 101 on the Arctic Report Card?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Arctic Report Card, as I am sure everyone on this call is familiar with, but potentially some viewers looking at the recording might need a refresher. The Arctic Report Card has been issued annually since 2006. So that smaller cover is the 2006 Arctic Report Card, and it's a timely peer-reviewed source for clear and reliable and concise environmental information on the current state of different components of the Arctic system relative to historical records. And so it is intended for a wide audience. So scientists, teachers, students, decision makers, community members, and the general public just interested in the Arctic environment and science. And so last year in 2025 marked the 20th anniversary of the Arctic Report Card. And so we were able to do a couple of additional exciting things, including the photo contest that Heather mentioned before, this resource kit, and we're excited to be kicking off production for the 21st issue of the Arctic Report Card here in a couple of weeks. Next slide, please. Perfect. So the Arctic Report Card is an international collaboration with over 100 researchers and even more throughout the 20 years that we have been publishing the Arctic Report Card. And so it's you can see from last year, it's always organized into these three sections. So you have the vital signs, which are going to be in every yearly issue. They are tracked regularly. Other important topics are updated periodically. So those are indicators. And so in 2025, we examined glaciers and ice caps outside of Greenland, the Atlantification of the Arctic, and warming waters and borealization, which borealization refers to the movement of more southerly non-Arctic species northward into Arctic regions. And we also had our frostbite section, which discussed other important emerging topics like the work of the Indigenous Sentinels Network at St. Paul Island, Alaska, and observations of resting rivers. And so we can look forward to shaking things up with the indicators and frostbites in the next issue. And the educational resource kit is responsive to sort of everything that was talked about in the 20th anniversary, but also responsive to issues that we have discussed in previous Arctic report cards as well. Okay. All right. And then perfect. And so if you scan this QR code, it'll take you to the NOAA.Arctic site, and you just navigate to the report card, I realized. But so that is where the report card is housed. You can see all previous report cards in the archive as well if there are any specific topics that interest you. And we are always working on efforts to expand to reach K through 16 audiences, like with this webinar today. I think I'm passing it back to Heather.
Yes, thank you. Um, so the efforts to add more outreach with the Arctic Report Card, and especially thinking about a K through 16 audience, has been a goal of the Arctic Report Card community for a long time, at least 5 years. So this is a poster that hangs in our Silver Spring, Maryland office, and I saw this poster in August 2024, almost less than 2 weeks after I started in my position. And the Arctic Report Card graphic in the bottom left is from 2021, so it's kind of aging this poster a little bit. And on the right-hand side, it says Future of the Arctic Report Card. And some of the text notes a goal of expanding outreach activities and partnering with NOAA Office of Education. And we're here to share about some of those expanded outreach activities and this product of a partnership with the NOAA Office of Education. So with regards to outreach activities, I did want to mention that this webinar is the third in a series of education and outreach focused webinars about the Arctic Report Card. The first one we did was in January 2025 for the NOAA Library, and it talks more about the history of the Arctic Report Card. So you can find that on the NOAA Library YouTube. The second one we did was in partnership with the National Science Teaching Association, or NSTA, in January of 2026. And that webinar focused on science updates from the latest 20th anniversary Arctic Report Card. but did kick off our efforts to build this educational resource kit. And we wanted to mention these two webinars because they're great resources for the latest headlines and hearing from authors and editors directly. You can also watch the press conference, which is linked on the Arctic Report Card website. There's a great executive summary. There's headlines in each essay. So really wonderful places to look at the science and learn more about the Arctic Report Card itself. This webinar, though, is focused on what accompanied that NSTA webinar. The Arctic Report Card Educational Resource Kit. So this is a collection of resources for anyone interested in the Arctic Report Card, including educators and students. And it's designed, as MB said, to be used with all editions of the Arctic Report Card. So evergreen is the word we use in comms. It's not really dated to a specific Arctic Report Card, but really can be used moving forward with new editions as well. So this kit was created alongside the release of the 20th anniversary Arctic Report Card, as I mentioned, which came out in December 2025, and then that NSTA webinar, which was held in January 2026. The kit is targeted to students in middle school, high school, and undergrads, but has a special section for younger students as well. And it features NOAA resources and resources that accompany the release of the Arctic Report Card, like the videos, summaries, headlines I've mentioned, as well as the new data dashboard. The kit was created in collaboration with the NOAA Office of Education. It's currently a featured resource on their Sea to Sky resource database. And this kit is organized into 4 sections, which I'll show you in a second. The first is background information for educators, engage your students, dive in deeper, and then that for younger students section. And each section provides multiple featured resources and suggestions along with a longer list of additional NOAA resources. So that QR code will take you directly to the resource kit. So I'll leave that up for a second for anyone who's looking to scan it. The HTML, the link is also on the bottom right. And I'm just going to switch my screen to the kit itself and zoom in just a little bit so it's the biggest it can be for all of you. So here it is. I mentioned those 4 different sections. These are jump links. So if you're interested in certain one, it'll take you right to that component. So this is our background information section, and each section is set up kind of the same way. What we really wanted to do with this is if anyone, educator, student interested in the Arctic broadly, comes to this, that they would have a few things to be able to do to learn about the Arctic Report Card. We didn't want to, overwhelm anyone with all of the amazing resources that surround the Arctic Report Card, but really trying to think of ways that they can dip your toes in for background and using language that is really easy for educators and their students and anyone interested in the Arctic Report Card to figure out what this great product is. So it usually has some suggestions like watching the NSTA webinar, to dig in by reading titles, and it has links to the latest Arctic Report Card, and visiting the Arctic Report Card data dashboard to learn about those 8 vital signs MB mentioned earlier. And this bonus section expands with more resources and ideas. So if someone who comes here doesn't kind of see what they're looking for, they can expand that bonus section and see even more. So for example, this one also links to a website that includes all of the Arctic Report Card press coverage. So if that was something of interest to an educator or student, we've got links to that as well. This is the engage your students section, so encouraging them to watch the 4-minute video or the 45-second trailer, looking and comparing photos, and then watching a NOAA Live webinar with Roberta Glenbarate about conditions in the Arctic and sort of thinking about conditions in their own backyard. Again, another bonus section with more ideas for first engaging students in the Arctic report card. Dive in deeper is exactly what it says, diving in deeper to the Arctic report card and all of the wonderful resources and just the amazing product that the Arctic report card is. So the first points people to the data dashboard and the interactive data dashboard on those 8 vital signs to actually, reading and digging into essays themselves. And then encouraging people to dive into the archive and looking at all of the editions of the Arctic report card over time. And even focusing on topics that are covered over time, maybe with 5 years in between to see how the latest science on those topics changes in the time that the Arctic report card has been coming out. Another bonus section again. This one has a lot of videos that we point to. And then for younger learners, so a little bit easier entry into thinking about topics related to the Arctic report card, thinking about weather, thinking about wildlife in the Arctic, and using some great resources like this Arctic virtual field trip. And then at the bottom, little shout out to the NOAA Office of Education. These back to school bundles were kind of what this Arctic report card resource kit was inspired by. So that was a quick tour. I went over the sections, featured resources and activities, bonus drop down, and the incorporation of some Arctic report card resources like essays, videos, and the data dashboard. This was a reminder to me to make sure I talked through each of those things as I was scrolling for you all. MB, this is you
Yes.
to share a little bit more about the data dashboard.
Absolutely. I went ahead and popped the link in the chat there in case anyone wants to play around on it while um, I am talking about it. But this is just a screenshot of the data dashboard, and you'll notice that once you enter the site, that you can hover over the information that is actually on the dashboard, and it'll elicit some different information. And so this is specifically a screenshot of that surface air temperature vital sign, but you can see that there is all 8 vital signs on that left-hand side. And each vital sign page is going to look similar. It's obviously going to be evaluating something different, but it's going to have an interactive chart along with that description of the rate of change, that key takeaway, methods and data description, and then a data download if you wanted to be able to play around with the data yourself. And so the data dashboard appears in the resource kit multiple times, as Heather pointed out, and it's used in a way to use questions to prompt students to observe and ask questions about the data, and overall just be, thinking about these data in different ways depending on sort of the grade level and age level that they are at. We also include a suggestion for a deeper dive to do a jigsaw discussion with students about different vital signs. And so there's lots of ways for the data dashboard to be incorporated, even ways that, might not exactly exist in the educational resource kit exactly, but we are always welcoming or want to hear about different ways that you might be using the data dashboard in your teaching. And so it's a great resource, especially for students that are kind of just starting to think about data and how data works and sort of mind mapping some of these things. So yeah, and I think next we're going to talk even more about some of the Arctic report card examples in the classroom.
Yeah, and I wanted to point people to that NSTA webinar. Karen Fry, a long time member of the Arctic Report Card community, talks about her work with students. So please check that out if you're interested in hearing more. And for those of you that are just joining us at the beginning, I had people share a little bit about where they're calling in from today, and how and when and where they're teaching about the Arctic. So, as MB said, we'd love to know how the Arctic report card is showing up in the ways that you are teaching and doing outreach. And we had a couple of those already. Thank you for sharing those, and would love to hear more. I use essays in my environmental studies class that I teach for the University of Connecticut. And so we read an essay from the Arctic Report Card each year, and it's been the Indigenous authored essay for the last couple of years. Um, so that's how I use the Arctic Report Card in my own undergrad classroom, and I'm hopeful that this kit will help the Arctic Report Card find its way into even more classrooms, because it is a really impressive, and sometimes that can be a little intimidating for teachers and students to bring this in to their own classrooms. And I'm seeing, yeah, just some great things in the chat. So we're at the part where we would love to hear from you, either in this, for those of you that are here today, in this webinar, but also if you are watching later, that's my email address, heather.heenehan@noaa.gov. Please feel free to email me and MB and Gabby, who just joined us last week. We have a team that can help you, and if it's education and outreach related, I'm more than happy to discuss. Um, and we'll take some time for discussion.
I'll jump in if that's okay.
Go for it, Sarah.
So these resources are great, but if I put myself in the shoes of a 10th grade science teacher or even an undergrad faculty at a college or something, it's like, okay, this is great, but what do I do with it? And so I'm thinking about what like CIRES, CIRES or CEEE, I think they're called now, based out of CU Boulder, has put together like oh goodness, data challenges. I forget what they're called. But they've put together like actual packaged activities that are already thought out. And there's the worksheet and there's the links and there's the thing you can copy and paste into a Canvas or Google Classroom. And I just wonder if there's any funding for you all to be able to go that next step and make this stuff like actually usable or have done the work already so that the rest of us can just take those great ideas, data nuggets, I think that's what they're called, is an example. And and yeah, and do that next piece because that next piece is probably a high school science teacher is probably not going to take the time to figure that out, and probably not an undergrad faculty either.
And I thank you for that, Sarah. And that is the hope, the goal, the next step. We having taught high school for 5 years, I know I actually used Data Nuggets, the one you mentioned, and
Yes.
loved a lesson plan, even if it wasn't quite. I had to modify it, but
Mhm.
part of what we wanted to do is sort of figure out what's out there and start with this resource kit. I also really like to, so if there's somebody that really want something about the data, right? I'm happy to work on a lesson plan about the data dashboard and Arctic data. But part of what we wanted to do is go to NSTA webinars, these kinds of webinars, and find out, like, would people actually use them? Like, if we work on them, um, what would what would people be looking for? What would be most useful? What should we, spin our wheels working on and putting together? Um, so this is our, like, first step, and then next step. I hope we have some, Arctic report card activities and lesson plans that are a little bit more, you know, take and go. Um,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And to think about, like, I mean, I could brainstorm with you on that for a while, but I'll let other people ask a thought here in a second. But I guess I would just think like I'm curious to think about how many environmental science teachers are incorporating the Arctic into their teaching already, as well. So that's all I have to say about that, and we'll pass it to the next person.
Yeah, and we just released this a couple months ago. So if there's like thinking about like the next NSTA or then some other big conference where we could get even more teachers learning about this and giving us that feedback. Um, as a separate example, I went and presented about at the Adopt a Drifter program, which is another piece of my GOMO work. Um, Met a teacher there and are able to sort of tailor and come up with new ideas, mapping data interactivity for that program. We have an intern working on it this summer, so I I see this as sort of a gateway to even more resources about the Arctic Report Card. For a K through 16 audience. Let me check the chat. Yes, and we've only just started to go on the road with the 2.0 version. Sarah, you saw the OG sort of Google Doc version of this in that NSTA webinar. So it's a living, breathing, evolving thing, and we hope it will lead to even more resources for teachers and their students.
I have a question, comment. I'm not sure this is the right avenue, but just kind of trying to merge Sarah's comments with Heather's comments. As just a little PSA, having just started only 5 days ago, I actually landed on this. I didn't realize I landed on the report card resource kit when I was like trying to read about the Arctic report card. So as like a dive into the Arctic, I found it helpful. Um, as an idea that, yeah, so that's one note. The other thought that I was going to bring up, and I don't know what capacity it falls into, like whether in NOAA or NOAA education, kind of Sarah bringing up like it's hard to find time to make the tools and then how do you know, or the kind of packages, and how do you know if the educators actually know to come here? An idea that I have seen successful in Hawaii state schools was having a workshop for K through 12 teachers that was paid for entirely to come and learn about the Arctic, or this wasn't the Arctic, but to learn about the Arctic. And together they designed K through 12 material that then lived on the page, and might be a way to like bridge the gap, but it has to be like, yeah, the accessibility part can be hard in making sure there's time and resources for people to be able to contribute.
Yeah, and Gabby, that's a another sort of dream for moving forward. In my ocean acidification program, part of my job, they have pretty sizable education mini grants. There's one currently out for coastal ecosystem learning centers like Aquaria for ocean acidification. So I would, and OAP has a different kind of mandate for national outreach and education. So I would love to have funding available for those kinds of workshops. We also have been talking to like ocean exploration and some of the other NOAA research groups that have those kinds of workshops already. So these are things that are percolating for sure. And some of the programs within NOAA research, certainly Sea Grant, they do more of that already. And we might actually be able to partner with them to piggyback on some of those existing um, mechanisms, I'll call them.
Hello, this is Donald Todd.
Is
Can you
the
hear me?
person on, yeah,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
Hey, this is Pat. So I came in late, and so if I'm bringing up something already said or shown, I'm going to shut up. That's not a problem. But I guess one of the things I was wondering about is it's nice having a kind of resource kit, but to a certain extent, it's still kind of a textbook thing. Do you have anything in the kit that would allow students or a class or whatever to maybe make some actual measurements so that you could see how these things, you're not only getting data that's already done, but you're making the measurements yourself for something. It could be something as simple as, actually measuring the freezing point of water, both fresh and salt water, is not, well, it's straightforward, but the answer you're going to get is not exactly what the textbook says it is, a 0C. The chances of it actually freezing at 0C it's challenging. And so all of a sudden you're starting to see, here's the actual collected data, but even doing something as simple as that can be really enlightening. So maybe with a kit, if there's a few measurements that could be made in a classroom setting, that would be fun. Or something you could do in summer vacation, or again, I was late, so sorry about that.
No, thank you, Todd. And I think I got it was a little fuzzy, but that's okay. Um,
Oh,
no, I think I heard sort of and making measurements, and so there are a couple of places in the resource kit that have students certainly making observations, maybe not measurements, that encourage them to make those observations of their own environment, to think about the Arctic, especially, if you don't live in the Arctic, to think about the observation of your own weather and climate and sort of what's normal outside your window. The chemistry component and sort of freezing, that kind of stuff isn't we tried to keep it sort of related to the Arctic report card. However, um, you know, the sort of resources or suggestions to bring it home, like you're saying, uh, are heard for sure, and are great suggestions. I'm even thinking about, the for younger learners section, to think about, those. Just considering, you know, surface air temperature, right? Like even just thinking about what the surface air temperature is in the Arctic compared to what it is out your window, and being a little bit more specific about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even I don't know if you heard this. It might have been too fuzzy, so sorry about that. But just measuring just straight temperatures of fresh water or salt water freezing
Yeah.
is really something to see. Also, what's the surface air temperature compared to the soil temperature? Right at the soil, 1 centimeter down. I mean, this can be done anywhere, and it might just be something that's kind of can inform what you're seeing in the kit. So thanks.
Yeah, I love that. And the data dashboard, I'll just click on it. So for those of you that may not have seen it, so surface air temperature, the sea surface temperature, even just like you're saying, kind of looking at what the sea surface temperature is in the Arctic, what the surface air temperature is in those data, what the ranges has been, comparing that to water on your table, or if there's water nearby, kind of just grounding these data in their own experience. Great suggestion, thank you. And I see there's stuff in the chat, so make sure I copy that chat before it disappears forever. Yeah, and there's a part where uh, we do have students down in the younger learners using weather.gov, using NOAA's weather.gov page to look at their own weather in the Arctic. And there's a great data tutorial video about that. We were a little bit limited in the kinds of resources we could put into the kit. I mentioned this before. Needed to be NOAA resources. So yeah,
Is it possible, Heather, for you and or your team here to give us a little bit of a what's next from a like realistic, like what are you actually able to do in the next 6 months? Or what are you hoping, what are you within the funding that you have for your positions and roles, and kind of give us a high level summary of what to anticipate or what to be excited about or anything like that that's within the scope of what you can actually share.
that's fair. Um, MB, do you want to talk about what you're excited about on Arctic Report Card land?
Yeah, I mean, I think like I mentioned at the beginning, we're kicking off another year of the Arctic Report Card in a couple of weeks, and intend to remain on schedule to release the 21st Arctic Report Card. And so that's always very exciting. New ones coming out. And so I think that sort of as we iterate over this next Arctic Report Card and take the feedback from you all, and in coordination with the report card editors, which are their names might have been on a slide here, but Matthew Druckenmiller, Twyla Moon, and Rick Toman, in coordination with them, kind of taking these next steps, hopefully, and figuring out a way to be able to iterate this in a way that is more responsive to, community needs and educator needs. And so it has been very helpful to hear feedback on this, and has got me thinking about a lot of things. And so to answer your question, maybe a little bit more briefly, is I don't know if I have an exact answer of what is next, but there will be a next, and it will include the feedback that you all have given us today. So,
Thanks, MB.
yeah.
Yeah, I think there is a next that we're taking this um, to the people who will use it. Whether you're like Gabby, who find your way to this and use it to learn about the Arctic Report Card, or gonna bring it into an environmental science class, or be on the ice, or what. Um, I also think something I'm excited about this upcoming Arctic Report Card is the ocean acidification essay is coming back. So it's generally been a 5 year in between. So I think this could be a really interesting place and time for me in both of my roles for both the Global Ocean Monitoring and Observing Program, of which the Arctic Research Program is part, and the Ocean Acidification Program. So I've already got my brain going on what that might be, and perhaps that's actually an activity or something we create, something that teachers can use and build from ocean acidification resources already available. And I'm also saying I'm super excited that we have Gabby on our team now as of last Friday. We have another Knaus fellow who is also split between GOMO and the ocean acidification program. So our capacity has, well, almost doubled. Um, well, it's grown by two, which is significant over the last week. So I'm excited to hear from Sadia and from Gabby about, what their superpowers and interests, and what they see needs doing, and giving them the opportunity to engage and lend lend their talents and time and superpowers to this project.
With that ocean acidification, do you also do work through AOS?
For ocean acidification, do I also do, I missed that.
Yeah, AOS, that group, they have a ocean acidification section within their group.
Yeah, and so um, in the ocean acidification, we have coastal acidification networks, which are embedded in those like I use regional areas. So yes, they're super well connected. Um, and I was just talking to Darcy Dugan, who's the coordinator um, for the Alaska Coastal Acidification Network 2 days ago about their work and the resources they have to think about Alaska ocean and coastal acidification.
Nice. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, happy to share about that too.
I just had another idea. So I was Googling NSTA in the back because I didn't know that it was the National Science and Teaching Association conference, and I don't know what that space looks like. But I wonder if also a um, other like if science conferences, there's one that comes to mind that's SICB, the Society of Integrated and Comparative Biology, usually has whole sections on teaching development. And I guess I was wondering, could you tell me a little bit more about like what actually it would look like for the Arctic research or Arctic report card to integrate into National Science and Teaching Association, and are there other opportunities to just like bombard conferences that have heavy teaching lean to kind of get this out there better as well? Or use it
Yeah,
as a
so
space. Yeah.
in the last so the most recent NSTA conference was in Anaheim, California in April, and NOAA usually has a booth, an exhibit, tables in the exhibit hall. So we were able to send materials to point people to the NSTA webinar about the Arctic Report Card and this new resource kit. So all of those little half pages that we printed for the table were taken, and it was, I think, 2 days after the 2.0 version launched that the NSTA conference started, so it was pretty quick. Um, we also plan to bring the resource kit to the National Marine Educators Association conference, which is in July. So those are ones that I have been to, um, but I'm, one of the things, polar steam was mentioned a couple of times now. So thinking about like places where Arctic educators gather. Um, I've been to many conferences that are more science-based that have a session or a day or a workshop on education, but I would love to get this in front of teachers, educators, whatever kind you may be in a classroom, informal, to get their feedback. And we weren't quite ready for feedback. We were just like, hey, we made this thing at the NSTA webinar. And now I think we're in a place to get that feedback to, like Sarah said, figure out what's, there's lots of things we could do. What should we do and what will we do are sort of probably a narrowing of actions. Oh, yeah. So, Sarah, we're due for another call, I think.
Yeah, I was just thinking, there's I mean, it doesn't sound like there's necessarily a huge bucket of money to like create an entire huge thing, but to use what we have, um, someone like myself could be, it's advantageous for me to have something really meaningful to talk about at a Colorado Science Teacher Association meeting, because then people come to my session and then I tell them about how they can engage and be on the ice as a course. So that's like it's a both and. And so, but I'm probably not the only one. I know I'm not. I know there's others who are that you have contact with, but to think about who could be some spearhead people, just to right now the world
Mhm.
needs some really hopeful things and things to rally around that we can still do. And so this may be one of those things that we can still do.
Agreed, agreed. And you know,
So we can have a call
the
later.
yeah,
I just think
and
we can talk at science meetings all you want. I mean, we all, there's numbers of us here that understand that, but I mean, you can do another session at AGU, but there's not any teachers at AGU. Like teachers don't go to AGU. That's like beyond. Yeah. So like
yeah, so I'm
finding
excited.
the, yeah, yeah. So keep thinking in this direction. This is good.
Yes, and thank you for thinking along with us and continue to do that with us, Sarah. We're gonna schedule a call when if you email me at heather.heenehan@noaa.gov, you will when I respond, my signature has a book me link. So it's a great way to even if with time zone differences depending on where you're from, to find a time that we can sit down together and talk about any of this. I'm more than happy to do so. And it also, as funding might change, as opportunities avail themselves, we can be nimble and pivot and hopefully incorporate even more opportunities as we're able. Thank you all for being here.
Yeah. Thank you, Heather and V. That was wonderful. We appreciate you taking the time. We are posting the recording to this meeting in the chat. So you'll see that in a couple of days. And if you have a topic that you'd like to see the STEM team or another one of our IARPIC teams or communities cover in a meeting, please you can submit your ideas on this form, which I'm putting in the chat. Oops, that didn't work, but here we go. I'll add it in again. But yeah, if you have any meeting ideas or topics you'd like to see at one of our meetings, feel free to submit. And yeah, thank you, everyone.